Welcome to my channel. Facts about France movies. Early French cinema and iconic films. France is known for its rich cinematic history, with early filmmakers like the Lumiere brothers pioneering motion pictures. The French film industry played a crucial role in the development of cinema as an art form. La Sortie de Lucien Lumière et Lyon 1895 is one of the earliest films capturing workers leaving the Lumière factory. A Trip to the Moon 1902, directed by George Méliès, is one of the earliest science fiction films. The Rules of the Game 1939, directed by Jean Renoir, is considered one of the greatest films in the history of cinema. The 400 Blows, 1959, by Francois Truffaut, is a defining film of the French New Wave movement. Breathless, 1960, directed by Jean-Luc Godard, is a landmark of French New Wave cinema. The César Awards, France equivalent to the Oscars, honors equivalence in French cinema. Amélie, 2001, is a beloved romantic comedy that gained international popularity. The Cannes Film Festival is one of the most prestigious and well-known film festivals in the world. Film awards and honors. French actors like Jean Gabin and Catherine Deneuve have achieved international fame. La Haine, 1995, is a powerful drama exploring urban violence and social issues. La La Land, 2016, paid homage to classic French musicals and was partially set in Paris. The Lumiere brothers are credited with inventing the cinematograph, an early motion picture camera and projector. The Intouchables, 2011, is a heartwarming film based on a true story about an unlikely friendship. French cinema often explores themes of love, identity, and human condition. A Very Long Engagement, 2004, is a romantic war drama directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. The Artist, 2011, is a silent black and white film that paid tribute to the early days of cinema. The French film industry produces a wide range of genres, from drama to comedy to historical epics. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, 2019, is a critically acclaimed period romance film. Cultural influence and trends. French cinema often reflects French culture, philosophy, and societal values. La La Land, 2016, pays homage to the French musical tradition. French cinema is known for its innovative storytelling and artistic experimentation. Cinema du look is a movement in French cinema marked by its visual styles and aesthetics. Amour, 2012 is a powerful drama about aging and love, directed by Michael Haneke. French cinema often explores the complexities of relationships and human emotions. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, 1964, is a famous musical that made Catherine Deneuve an international star. Lucky aux Folles, 1978, is a classic French farce about a gay couple. The French New Wave brought a fresh and innovative approach to storytelling and filmmaking. French cinema has a strong tradition of storytelling and narrative experimentation. Industry and technology. France has a thriving film exhibition industry with a significant number of theaters. The Louis Lumiere School is a renowned institution for training filmmakers. French cinema has embraced digital filmmaking and special effects technology. French actors often cross over into international cinema, including Hollywood. Streaming services have made French films more accessible to a global audience. The Triplets of Belleville, 2003, is an animated film that gained international acclaim. The French government provides support and funding to the country's film industry. France has a strong presence in international film festivals and awards. French cinema often addresses social and political issues, including immigration and identity. The future of French cinema is promising, with increasing recognition on a global stage. Cultural impact and future. French cinema has influenced global fashion, art, and storytelling. Blue is the Warmest Color, 2013, is a coming-of-age drama known for its intense performance. French filmmakers often emphasize cultural preservation and heritage. Delicatessen, 1991, is a dark comedy set in a post-apocalyptic world. The influence of French cinema extends to international film movements. The Class, 2008, is a drama set in a multicultural French school. French films often addresses issues of migration, multiculturalism, and societal change. France continues to produce diverse and innovative films that reflect its unique cultural landscape. La La Land, 2016, and other films have celebrated the magic of Hollywood through French cinema. The future of French cinema is bright, with its ability to inspire and challenge audiences worldwide. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.